This video hides a disturbing secret. On February 13th, 2014, Loretta Saunders, a pregnant university student, stepped into an elevator and was never seen again. Her sudden disappearance shattered her family and left loved ones desperate for answers. Loretta Saunders, 26 years old, a criminology student at St. Mary's University, was nearing the end of her degree. Her thesis topic was deeply personal: missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls in Canada. It wasn't just an academic paper, it was her mission, her promise to give a voice to the silenced. She was 3 months pregnant, carrying a small miracle, the child she shared with her boyfriend, Yelhin Sakitluk, a gentleman from Turkey. They had just returned from visiting his family overseas, full of dreams for the future, a home, a family, a life built on peace instead of pain. But the very next day, after Valentine's Day, Loretta vanished. No phone calls, no messages, no trace. Only 2 strange texts were sent to Yelchin. "I'm locked out of my online banking. I'm so stressed I can't even remember my mother's maiden name. Then, going to stay with a friend. Talk later." The messages felt wrong, cold, distant, unlike her. Hours turned to days. 3 days. Then 5. Her phone stayed silent. Her car gone. Her family frantic. When the police finally found her vehicle nearly 1,800 miles away, the people inside weren't Loretta and Yelchin. They were Blake Leggetts and Victoria Henneberry, the couple she had rented her old apartment to the probant. No one knew yet that the woman who had dedicated her life to studying victims was about to become one herself. Sometimes, justice doesn't live in the courtroom, it lives in the memory of those who refuse to forget. Before tragedy found her, Loretta Saunders had been living through what many would call the brightest chapter of her life. She was born in Newfoundland and Labrador, into a large Inuit family that had weathered poverty, addiction, and violence. From childhood, Loretta and her sister Delilah, or DM, as everyone called her, had endured physical and sexual abuse, a lack of education, and years of instability. Yet, even amid darkness, Loretta carried a quiet strength, the kind of determination that burns low, steady, and unbreakable. In her early 20s, she decided to leave home and move to Montreal alone. It was supposed to be a fresh start, but the city, cold and unforgiving, swallowed her whole. Within months, Loretta was addicted, homeless, and sleeping on the streets. Her mother, Miriam, later said there were nights she feared her daughter wouldn't survive the winter. But Loretta fought back. She enrolled in a methadone treatment program, clawing her way out of addiction, one trembling day at a time. When she finally regained control of her life, she made a decision that changed everything. She applied to St. Mary's University in Halifax. Against all odds, she was accepted. Loretta studied criminology, determined to understand the systems that failed women like her, Indigenous women whose disappearances were ignored, whose stories were buried under silence. When her professor asked what she wanted to write her thesis on, Loretta didn't hesitate. Missing and murdered Indigenous women. Because if we don't tell their stories, who will? In class, she was known for her quiet focus, her sharp questions, her compassion. She wasn't chasing grades, she was chasing justice. By 26, her life had finally found direction. She was 3 months pregnant, expecting a baby with her boyfriend, Yelhin Sakitluk, a kind-hearted man from Turkey. They had just returned from visiting his family overseas, where Yelchin proudly introduced her as the woman I'm going to marry. With graduation only 2 months away, Loretta decided to sublet her old apartment number 1003 at 41 Cowie Hill Drive to a young couple, Blake Leggetts and Victoria Henneberry. They said they just needed a temporary place. Loretta, generous and trusting, handed them the keys without hesitation. The apartment was cozy, flooded with morning light, a place that once symbolized her new beginning. She had no way of knowing that this simple act of kindness would open the door to something unspeakable. A few weeks later, the home she once filled with hope would become a crime scene, and the woman who fought her way back to life would vanish inside it. When the light burns brightest, The shadows are never far behind. February 13th, 2014. A cold Thursday morning in Halifax. Snow dusted the sidewalks as Loretta Saunders left home with a clear planned stop by her old apartment at 41 Cowie Hill Drive to collect rent from her tenants, Blake Leggetts and Victoria Henneberry, then spend the afternoon studying. A normal day, nothing unusual, nothing to fear. At 11 o'clock that morning, the building's security camera captured Loretta entering the lobby. She wore a dark coat, her hair tied neatly back, yet her expression calm and focused, the look of a woman whose life was finally coming together. That image would become the last known sighting of her alive. That evening, her boyfriend Yelchin received a text. "I'm locked out of my online banking. I'm so stressed I can't even remember my mother's maiden name." A few minutes later, another, "Going to stay with a friend. Talk later." Short, cold. Unlike her, the words felt wrong, mechanical. He replied, called, begged her to pick up. Nothing. The next morning, panic began to creep in. When Yelchin couldn't reach her, he called DM, Loretta's sister. She hadn't heard anything either. Loretta, the woman who called her mother every day, had gone silent. 3 days passed. No phone calls. No messages. Her car was gone. Her wallet missing. Her phone off. Finally, the family filed a missing persons report. Halifax detectives began with the most obvious lead, Yelchin. They searched his home, questioned him for hours. Everything was in order. His grief was real. He was ruled out.
They didn't pay the rent, they hadn't paid yet. So they just kept coming up with excuses. She said she was stressed and she locked herself out and banking, online banking, and she needed money. It's I'm so stressed that I can't even remember my own mother's maiden name.
Then came the apartment at Cowie Hill Drive. Room 1003 was locked. Inside, the space was strangely pristine, too clean. No signs of a struggle, no blood, no disturbance. A neighbor mentioned the tenants, Blake and Victoria, had gone away for a few days. Investigators reviewed every second of surveillance footage from the building. Loretta entered at 11 that morning, but she never came out. Not through the front door. Not through the parking garage. Not through the fire exit. It was as if she had simply vanished. Meanwhile, the story began to spread. Local news stations aired her photo, a bright-eyed young woman, smiling softly. 26-year-old university student, 3 months pregnant, missing since February 13th.
The family of a woman who is missing in Halifax is appealing for public help. Loretta Saunders is 26 and was pregnant when she disappeared last week. As Ross Lord reports, her sister says she is clinging to hope because she knows Saunders is strong and smart.
Her mother Miriam appeared on camera, voice trembling. "She's strong. She wouldn't just disappear. Please, please help me find my daughter." Social media exploded with the hashtag #BringLorettaHome. Strangers volunteered to search, print posters, raise money to fly the family from Labrador to Nova Scotia. Hope still lingered, fragile, but alive.
People care, and they're all coming out to do whatever we can offer.
Tonight, police are making arrangements to bring the roommates back to Nova Scotia as the search for Loretta Saunders continues. Tom Murphy, CBC News, Halifax.
Then, a breakthrough. Detectives discovered Loretta's bank cards were still being used at 5 o'clock on February 13th. A transaction appeared at a convenience store in Bayers Lake. Security footage showed a woman in a blue jacket using the card. Minutes later, another charge at a Tim Hortons 10 miles away. But the woman wasn't Loretta, and the man driving the car wasn't Yelchin. The illusion of hope shattered. Detectives cross-checked the footage, the car registration, the bank data, one by one. The clues lined up. Every trail led back to the same two names. Blake Leggetts and Victoria Henneberry. They had vanished. Loretta had vanished. And the car that once carried her to class, to the life she had fought for, was nowhere to be found. Until, 8 days later, a call came from Harrow, Ontario, nearly 1,800 miles away. Loretta's blue Toyota Corolla was parked outside a small suburban house, and inside that house were Blake and Victoria. What began as a missing persons case was now something far darker. The search for Loretta Saunders was about to uncover a truth more horrifying than anyone could have imagined. 8 days after Loretta disappeared, the investigation took a shocking turn. Detectives in Halifax received a call from police in Harrow, Ontario, nearly 1,800 miles away. They had found Loretta's car parked outside a small suburban house. The people living there were Blake Leggetts and Victoria Henneberry, the same couple who had rented Loretta's apartment. When officers entered the house, the pair acted calm, almost bored, as if none of this concerned them. On the coffee table sat Loretta's cell phone. In Blake's pocket, her bank cards. The police arrested them on charges of possession of stolen property. But deep down, the detectives already knew this was no simple theft. Back in Halifax, investigators reviewed the security footage from 41 Cowie Hill Drive once again. 2:30 in the afternoon, February 13th, the camera captured Blake exiting the elevator, dragging a large black hockey bag. He was sweating, hunched, struggling under its weight. 30 minutes later, he returned carrying 2 more bags. On the final trip, Victoria was beside him. No one else left the building that day. And Loretta never came out. Detectives exchanged glances, no words needed. The truth was staring back at them from the grainy footage. A search of Blake's phone revealed something even more chilling. A video recording. In it, Blake, drunk, angry, filmed Victoria as they argued.
This is why Victoria should not drink.
You really think I don't want to be with you?
When I'm sober?
It's stupid.
Why? What have I done?
You can't even say that you really want to kill Loretta. You said that you want to kill her earlier.
When did I say that?
When police confronted Victoria with the video, the mask cracked. Her voice trembled, tears falling as she whispered, "He did it. He killed her. He smothered her with a bag, because we didn't want to pay the rent." From there, the horror unfolded piece by piece.
Where's the hockey bag now, Vicky? Vicky? I don't know. Vicky? Look at me, Vicky. Where's the bag, Vicky? You already told me you killed her, and you were there.
That afternoon, Loretta had arrived to collect $600 in overdue rent. She sat down, waiting patiently. Blake walked up behind her and wrapped his arm around her neck. She fought back fiercely, clawing, kicking, desperate to live. He grabbed 4 plastic bags, one after another, trying to suffocate her. She tore through each one. In frustration, he slammed her head against the floor once, twice until she stopped moving. Then, coldly and methodically, he wrapped her body in plastic wrap, stuffed her into the hockey bag, and dragged it down the hallway. Together, Blake and Victoria carried it out to Loretta's own car and drove away. On the road, they used her bank cards to buy food. They even used her cell phone to text Yelchin, pretending to be her, assuring him she was fine, that she just needed some space. For days, they drove west, eating, laughing, spending her money as if nothing had happened. 2 weeks later, Victoria finally broke. She agreed to lead police to where they'd left Loretta. On the side of a lonely highway in New Brunswick, buried on a melting snow, officers found a black hockey bag. Inside was Loretta's body, still bound, still wearing the clothes she'd left home in. An autopsy confirmed what everyone already knew: she had been strangled to death. All of this, one detective said quietly, for $600. Loretta Saunders had fought for her life until the very end. Her death was brutal, senseless, and yet, in the face of that cruelty, she remained a symbol of strength. The investigation was over, but for her family, the real battle for justice and for meaning was only beginning. March 2014. The courtroom in Halifax was packed to the walls. You could feel the air tighten, heavy with grief and fury. In the front row sat Miriam Saunders, Loretta's mother, gripping a framed photo of her daughter. Across the room, Blake Leggetts and Victoria Henneberry sat motionless, two faces drained of remorse, two hearts that had already gone cold. They were charged with first-degree and second-degree murder. At first, both pleaded not guilty. Their lawyers requested separate trials, but the judge refused. You committed this crime together. You'll face justice together. When the autopsy details were read aloud, even seasoned reporters fell silent. Loretta's body was found inside the hockey bag, wrapped in layers of plastic. Her injuries showed she had fought with everything she had, and inside her a 3-month-old unborn child. As prosecutors described how Loretta was killed, Miriam broke down. Her older daughter, DM, snapped. She lunged across the aisle, screaming through tears. "You killed my sister. You killed her and her baby. You monsters." The officers restrained her gently, but her scream lingered, a raw, human sound that pierced every heart in the room. Then, just days before the trial began, a surprise twist. Both defendants changed their pleas. Blake pleaded guilty to first-degree murder. Victoria to second-degree murder. His lawyer said quietly, he didn't want the family to suffer through the horror of the evidence being read in open court. But for Loretta's family, that gesture meant nothing. When the judge pronounced the sentence, his voice was steady, his words sharp as steel. Your crime was despicable, horrifying, and cowardly. You took the life of a pregnant woman for $600. The verdict: Blake Leggett's life in prison. No chance of parole for 25 years. Victoria Henneberry life in prison, eligible for parole after 10 years. The courtroom erupted in sobs. Miriam stood up, trembling, her voice breaking with fury. "Two grown monsters killed my pregnant daughter and call that justice? 10 years. That's not justice. Justice would mean they never breathe again." Outside, cameras flashed. Microphones filled the air. News outlets across Canada ran the story. A senseless murder that shook Halifax. Hundreds attended a vigil at St. Prostes, Mary's University, candles glowing against the cold night. The university president announced the creation of the Loretta Saunders Memorial Scholarship, dedicated to helping Indigenous women pursue higher education, the dream Loretta never got to finish. Yet even behind bars, the echoes of deceit continued. Victoria, now in prison, began claiming she had Indigenous ancestry, a move the community condemned as an insult to Loretta's memory. Advocacy groups called it a manipulation, an attempt to wear the identity she helped destroy. Her appeals for leniency were all denied.
Dozens of people gathered in Halifax's Parade Square last night in memory of a young woman whose story touched the lives of people from coast to coast.
Meanwhile, DM, Loretta's sister, channeled her grief into action. She started a blog titled A Homicide Survivor's Journey Through Grief, and later collaborated on the documentary Highway of Tears, which exposed the epidemic of missing Indigenous women across Canada. She once said, "Loretta should have been the one telling this story. I'm just speaking because she can't." But even as she spoke, you could see it, the weight she carried, the kind of pain that doesn't fade, only folds itself deeper into the soul. The trial had ended. The sentences were given. And yet, for Loretta's family, justice still felt incomplete. February of 2014 came and went, but the wound it left behind never healed. In the years that followed, Loretta Saunders' name became more than a headline. It became a symbol of unfinished justice. At St. Mary's University, where she had studied with such determination, a memorial scholarship was created in her honor, the Loretta Saunders Scholarship, supporting Indigenous women in higher education. Every year, when recipients are announced, they speak her name not as a victim, but as a light that keeps burning. Yet for her family, grief had no finish line. Her sister DM, who once turned pain into purpose, eventually lost her battle with addiction and passed away in 2021. At the memorial, their mother Miriam said softly, "Now they're together again. I pray they found peace. Somewhere justice doesn't have to be fought for." Those who knew Loretta say she had a particular kind of gaze, steady, searching, full of empathy, as if she could see both the pain and the potential in every person she met. She never got to finish her thesis, but the last lines she wrote still live on, like a message left behind. My story isn't unique. Thousands of girls face what I could never wish upon another human being. Through this work, I hope to give them hope to show that change is possible.
Blood on her hands from my daughter, and she got 10 years. Now what kind of justice is that? You tell me what kind of justice. A pregnant woman, a small little pregnant woman, two big monsters. And you know, they say they give us justice. 10 years. Is that justice? Anybody? Pregnant women, murdered. Two murderers. I like to see I would like to see the death penalty come in. I would like to see the death penalty and cold-blooded murderers be taken off the street once and for all. They haven't got a right to breathe the air what we breathe because they took the life of my daughter and my grandchild. They murdered her without mercy. And I think we should have no mercy on them.
As I walked down to the courthouse, deep down in my heart, I was praying and I was saying, God, if you're real, I'm sorry to be questioning you. If you're real, God, and you really have my daughter with you, please ask them to plead guilty. And it was so funny. Then I would say, oh my God, what's that? You know, I was talking to God, and you know, God answered my prayer. And all the prayers, the people, supporters who've been praying for us all through, our prayers was answered, and I like to thank everybody. I'm so mixed feeling. I'm hurting. I'm going to miss my girl. I'm glad that we don't have to go through what we had to do, and I'm feeling bad for their parents. I don't know. I'm overwhelmed. I'm really overwhelmed.
In 2017, the Canadian government launched the National Inquiry into Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls, a movement many believed Loretta's death had helped awaken. The final scene of her story isn't a courtroom, but a cold Halifax square, her mother standing beneath a gray sky, clutching a photo of her daughter, wind tugging at her hair, eyes filled with pain yet unwavering strength. They took my daughter's life, but they'll never take her voice. And maybe that's what justice truly means, not a sentence, but a story that refuses to die. If you believe justice deserves to be heard, share